We tried to fix peek's advantage in Valorant. The solution we tested was to hold your angles wider by default. In the first episode, I left you hanging with so many questions, like how wide should you even hold? Or isn't it actually better to become the peeker yourself? And how do you even train this wide hold technique? But before we get into that, let's first address why you don't see this technique being used often in pro play. There are two reasons in my opinion. You see, in pro matches, the gameplay is super scaled down. Pro players' decisions during matches are meticulous. They try to work more in sync with each other, and the pacing of the game is generally slowed down. Pro players aren't just dry dueling all the time. I mean, you'll less likely find instances where a pro is just randomly swinging angles. In a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that in pro matches, pros are more afraid and try to avoid as much unnecessary dueling as possible. The second reason is that peek's advantage is reduced to a point where it isn't really advantageous. And since they're playing at a LAN event, flying to server pings are practically almost non-existent. However, that's not to say that it isn't useful in pro matches either. I mean, let's just take a look at this clip by Alpha here. Here's Alpha in the recent VCT. Watch how he won this insane clutch just by wide swinging. Alpha's playing post plant here. Game is at 10-10, is a 2v2. Now, look at how he takes his first duel. Mind you, they both whiff at each other. And since Jonah knows where Alpha is, notice what he does here. He goes into cover, then wide swings Jonah. Unfortunately, Jonah isn't out of the angle yet, but Alpha wins it anyways. Now, watch how Alpha won the clutch. Leaf kills the planter, so it's him and Alpha in a 1v1. This is a dry duel. No utility needed, no team play. It's just Alpha versus Leaf. And they need to duel it out. What does Alpha do? Wide swings the angle and wins the clutch. Interestingly enough, if Leaf would have held wide here, he would have won. Now, this is just an instance in the entire game where it was purely dry dueling. So what about the rest of the game? How do we implement this throughout? In our first episode, I showed you that in 1v1 duels, your default hold should be a wide hold, which means when you don't have any info on the enemy, you want to hold your angles wide. And I'm going to be using the word wide a lot, so bear with me. Now, applying this in the game can be a bit more complex. It takes some practice to habitualize it and implement it in your own playstyle. Let me show you a good example of how I personally use wide holds in my own gameplay. On Icebox, I like to set up an aggressive early play on either side. For example, I like to put a TP site and at the start of the round push towards B main. Watch this clip here. I do the setup and I'm in position here. My default hold is wide. Enemy fast XXB, I get 2 free kills. And I just graded here. Now I'm going to show you an example where holding wide worked against me. I set up the same play. Now there is a killjoy lurking towards B. And because he's in lurk mode, he would shift through to here for rotations. He basically wants to avoid duels and sneak up space. If he does open up angles, he would take his time slicing them. Now, because I didn't factor in that he's in lurk mode, I maintained my hold here. And what happens? He normal peeks me and I get punished for it. Now, I could have adjusted my hold based on the fact that his team threw an arrow towards A, meaning they're looking to execute A. That would have given me an indicator to watch out for lurks. Now, this is an exception because there was additional info on the map that I could have extracted. Okay, let's break this down even more. On the same map, I usually like to do the same setup on A. Now, if there is no info on the map, no arrow coming towards A, no arrow or sounds towards B, then my default hold looks like this. If there was info on A, and enemies doing a fast execute, then my default hold would still be wide. If there was info on B, then I assume someone is in lurk mode, so my hold now would be adjusted to close. Now if I'm playing site and have no info on the enemy, then I would hold boiler like this. Enemy will swing, all I have to do is click and get my free pick. Same on Haven window. I hold wide and just click. Same on Lotus drop. Post plant, I hold wide and get my free kills. Okay, what do all these angles have in common? Like, why is the wide hold working so well here? Well, all those angles are multi-angles, meaning when you peek from them, you're open to multiple angles, so it's very likely to be swung and not slowly cleared. So hold wide when there is no info, no indicator of a lurker, when there is an indicator of fast execute, and when holding multi-open angles. Hopefully this kind of gives you an idea on what exceptions and situations a wide hold would work and wouldn't work in. Okay, now the question you may all be asking, why all this? From our testing in our previous video, we covered the idea of swing buffering. And if you didn't watch that video, I'll just explain it in a nutshell. According to our testing, when an enemy normal peeked us, they stood way longer before they fired their shot as opposed to when they swung us. And we attributed this to the fact that when you peek, there is a process that takes place where you assess the area first, then adjust your crosshair on the enemy before you click. Now, when you're swinging, this whole process takes place during your movement. That's why the participants we tested with fired their shot quicker when they swung. Combine this with peek's advantage and you get this happening to you. So far, we've only covered how to counter this, which is by doing the right hold. So doesn't that mean it would be even better if we become the peeker ourselves? And if so, what is the best way to peek? It would be really interesting to know what's generally more advantageous, being the holder or the peeker. I'm gonna test this on different pings to see just how strong Pika's advantage actually is. We need data from as many duels as possible, so I'll play about 15 death matches, and for each duel, I'll write down who won, the peaker or the holder. I'll also note the combined ping of me and my opponent. We'll then punch the data into a sheet, which will feed into this graph. And what we're expecting to see is a slight advantage for the peaker, which becomes stronger the higher the ping. Let's get to it. Okay, here are the results. I managed to collect over 200 duels in total. Now, we can see a trend here. The higher the ping, the more the duel is in favor of the peaker. And the difference is quite strong, actually. Okay, but this is interesting because the graph also shows that there is a holder's advantage when the combined ping is on the lower side. Okay, knowing this now, how do we combat this in an actual game? Personally, I like to play for timings. I typically use the wide swing and hold technique adaptively. For example, here is a game where the enemy Reina is on 70 ping, and he was the star player. I will try to avoid holding him since he has the upper hand every time he swings me. Instead, I will be the one initiating contact. So I wouldn't be holding window on ascent here. If he decides to swing at the start of the round, I'm screwed. Instead, I will tuck into cover, let him do his thing, then I peek into him. Now, this is something a lot of players either neglect or are just simply unaware of. If you end up facing a high ping player and feel completely helpless while holding angles, then become the peaker yourself. You'll have the same advantage that they have over you. According to Riot, that's how Pika's advantage works. Now, as I said, I use this concept adaptively. For example, on Haven A, a play I like to do is hold main and deny space aggressively. What I would do here is tuck behind the box, ask my teammate to shoot the reveal if it's bound to see me. They throw their flashes and util to entry lobby, I'm not there. Now, here is the differentiator. If their entry is on high ping, I will wait till he's scaling up and off-guard peek him, kill, and TP out. However, if their entry is on normal ping, all I do here is space away from the angle and hold wide. Since it's a multi-open angle for the enemy, I just get my freebie here. Suppose the enemy hugs the right wall, gets close, and normal peeks the angle. What then? Or better yet, suppose the enemy doesn't really think that deep, like this Reina I had in one of my games, where he doesn't swing a smoke but normal peeks it. What do we do then? Well, if you remember from our previous video, this micro flick is easier to do than this one, since he's more of a static target here. Now, you may ask, but Ankh, what if my aim sucks? I got you. I designed this specific scenario for it. The 1-to-1, meaning I adjusted the movement momentum to match Valorant's agents. This scenario also takes swing buffering into account. When a target swing, it's moving. When it does a normal peak, it stands still for longer. We set the static time of the target to match exactly the games. So you want to play this scenario holding wide. Work on both click timing a wide swing and micro flicking a short peak. We also created a right side version so that you can work on your micro flicks in both directions. This scenario will also teach you how wide you should exactly hold for different ranges: close, mid, and long range. I'll link the scenario ID in the description. If you made it this far, you're more passionate than I am. Now that we've covered all of this, I hope this offers you some solace in your games. I know firsthand how tilting and frustrating it is to play the game and feel like you stand no chance due to something technical. What I learned from this experience, and what I'd like you all to solidify in your heads, is that you cannot buy skills with money. Trust me, not only have I met so many players who think just by upgrading to the latest tech that they can rank up, but I was a victim of it myself. And it's a combination of a multitude of things. It could be that you're experiencing a placebo effect, or that you're just honeymoon phasing, or you fall into a cognitive dissonance, or better yet, the most common one, lack of accountability. Honestly, having personally tried over 80 gaming mice, all the fastest keyboards on the market, all the different monitors, tweaks, optimizations, and even gone through input lag forums, videos, and guides, I can confidently tell you that I managed to often get top 100 with literally a plethora of different setups. I played as well as on this little cubic mouse as I did with this large shallow shaped mouse. Also played as well on a 480Hz OLED and a 240Hz monitor. I mean, just look at Nats, arguably the best player in Europe. He plays with a Zowie mouse, which has above 5 milliseconds click latency, and here was his KDA in the VCT. So don't fault your shortcomings and ability to master the game to something external like your hardware. I spoke with G2's major winning performance and mindset coach regarding another case study we're working on, and he said something that really resonated with me.
Optimization and performance are not the same things. The best people in an industry are never the best optimizers.